The best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Do you know what the legend of the jack-o'-lantern is? I think this is a great opportunity to talk about why we shouldn't mess with Satan and the reality of heaven, hell, and purgatory. It's, I think, a distinctly Catholic moment. We're coming up on Halloween, so here's our opportunity to do all things Catholic with our Halloween celebrations, because I'm posting a link in the episode notes. Halloween is Catholic. It is the changed version of what has been known historically as All Hallows Eve, and from Protestant rejection of Halloween being too Catholic in the United States to everything from the fact that witchcraft celebrates its birthday of magic on Halloween. There's a lot to do away with, there's a lot to embrace, and a lot to correct. But I never knew that jack-o'-lanterns were questionable. I recently talked to someone who said, I would never let my kid carve a jack-o'-lantern. And immediately to me, I thought, well, what is a jack-o'-lantern? What's a big deal? Isn't it just a carved face and a pumpkin? What's such a big deal about that? So instead of just ignorantly going along with that, I started doing some research. And a jack-o'-lantern is basically a pumpkin with a face, but it hasn't always been a pumpkin. It's been everything from turnips for people in Ireland to other types of vegetables and more specifically things you can carve in for people throughout Europe. So it actually comes to us from a Irish myth that spread with Irish immigrants who came to America, the land of the pumpkin, where pumpkins were used to carve the jack-o'-lanterns. And remember, Irish immigrants who came to the United States were Catholic, very Catholic, and actually greatly objected to by the culture because they were Catholic and ostracized because of their Catholicism. So here's how the legend goes, and I actually really like this. It's a little creepy. It allows for a little bit of spook in terms of a story if you want to tell it to kids. But I want to share with you the story of the jack-o'-lantern. It's about a man named Stingy Jack. I was doing research, and a great story of this came up at history.com. I'll link to it in the episode notes and on social media. The story goes as this on history.com. Stingy Jack invited the devil to have a drink with him. True to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drink. So he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin that Jack could use to buy their drinks. Once the devil did so, Jack decided to keep the money and put it into his pocket next to a silver cross, which prevented the devil from changing back into his original form. Jack eventually freed the devil under the condition that he would not bother Jack for 1 year, and that should Jack die, he would not claim his soul. Jack eventually freed the devil under the condition that he would not bother Jack for 1 year, and that Jack should die, he would not claim his soul. The next year, Jack again tricked the devil into climbing into a tree to pick a piece of fruit. While he was up in the tree, Jack carved a sign of the cross into the tree's bark so that the devil could not come down until the devil promised Jack not to bother him for 10 more years. Soon after, Jack died. As the legend goes, God would not allow such an unsavory figure into heaven. The devil, upset by the trick Jack had played on him and keeping his word to not claim his soul, would not allow Jack into hell. He sent Jack off into the dark night with only a burning coal to light his way. Jack put the coal into a carved-out turnip and has been roaming the earth with it ever since. You see, the Irish began to refer to the ghostly figure as Jack of the Lantern, and then later simply Jack-o'-lantern. Now, this is a fascinating story. Again, I'm reading this from history.com because from Ireland to Scotland to the rest of the English, the immigrants brought this to the United States. In England, they used large beets to carve out their jack-o'-lanterns. In Ireland, they used turnips. Here in the United States, we use our good old pumpkins that come in abundance from our soil. I think this is a fantastic story for teaching on Halloween, for an activity surrounding pumpkins, and key things such as don't mess with Satan. Now, while this is not theologically sound, it does bring a good key story to mind. Don't mess with Satan. And sometimes the best way to learn is to actually critique the things that we read and things we hear, including stories. But this is why you need to know your theology and teach it. The bottom line is there are only 3 places that you can go after death: heaven, hell, and purgatory. Again, great teaching moment. The legend reminds us that we should never, ever, ever mess with the devil, the demonic, or their ways. They're not our friends. These are key ideas that can be taught to kids. They can even be a little spooked out by a conversation about the devil. Now, this isn't even that spooky of a version of a conversation of a devil. It's about a no to hell and a no to heaven, which we don't want a no to heaven, and we definitely don't want a yes to hell. This is a moment to teach kids about the reality of the devil. That the devil is more powerful than us, but God is more powerful than all, and especially God is more powerful than the devil. And so we should choose, if you're carving pumpkins, this is a great opportunity in talking about heaven and hell, good and evil, God and the reality of the devil, at a time when people want to reject these such things. We should always talk as well about why we should choose God's way and not the way of the devil, who, by the way, as we teach in church teaching, it's the devil, as tradition says, that said, I will not serve to Satan. And the contrary is true of St. Michael, who said he would serve God. And this is why on All Hallows Eve, we're ushering in the great feast day of All Saints' Day. That's Halloween, the eve of All Saints' Day. Historically, people dressed up as saints. This is why we should choose to stay away from the devil and the evil elements of Halloween, the witchcraft elements, and celebrate God. To be the ones to celebrate the people who said, I will serve God. Halloween is a celebration of the triumph of Christ, and Christ specifically in his saints. And so sharing the stories of the saints, sharing the stories about how God triumphed over the devil is a great way to bring a twist to this tradition of carving pumpkins, now often called jack-o'-lanterns. So while you carve pumpkins and talk about jack-o'-lanterns, remember this legend brought to us by, specifically, Catholic Irish immigrants, that tells a great story about not messing with Satan, the power of God, the importance of heaven, of God triumphing over the devil. What do you think? Do you think this is something you can incorporate? I think Halloween is a great season where we have a lot of fun, but let's incorporate more fun Catholic elements. It's something I'm thinking a lot about now as a newer mom with kids who are working their age toward being more aware. And if you want to learn more about Halloween, I did a whole episode diving into why do people have objections to Halloween? What are the parts about Halloween and witchcraft and Satanism that people are concerned about? But more better, how is Halloween Catholic, and what can we do to make Halloween Catholic in a day that ushers us into All Saints' Day, November 1st, celebrating the saints and Christ's triumph in his saints in the church? You can join me and listen on the Relevant Radio app to Trending with Timmerie live each weekday at 6 p.m. Central. Thanks for listening.